It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I'm Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host, Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. Also, go subscribe to us over on YouTube if you're not watching over there already. We are going to be posting more videos besides the shows and sometimes clips of the shows. So go subscribe to us there. Leave a like, leave a comment. Go check us out there. Also, while you're watching or listening to the show, wherever you're doing that, go check out the description. The top link in the description over on the listening platforms and over on YouTube is Year 7 of Rock Around the 412, our Christmas fundraiser. I'm sure a lot of you know all about it, but basically it is trying to raise money to provide children for Christmas in the 724-412 local Pittsburgh area codes. We've done that over the last 6 years, been able to help close to 100 kids, raised over $32,000. Year 7 GoFundMe is the top link, and it's going to continue to be the top link in the description every single week moving forward. So if you want to be interested in that, go check that out below. A lot of busy Steelers talk this week, not to mention we had a preseason game, which we will talk about. But whenever you think the narrative is dead, it is not dead. And Brandon Aiyuk is still the talking point of Pittsburgh Steelers fandom. How are we this far in past the point where we thought there was no return for a Brandon Aiyuk trade, and we're still talking about it? How did we get to this point?
Until he signs an extension with San Francisco, and this isn't going to happen at this point. I think it's pretty clear he is one of two destinations, but let's just say for the sake of an argument, another team were to come into play or is traded to a different team. This will continue to be a conversation. I do think based off of some stuff that happened today, we are kind of getting to the final destination, whatever that might be. But we're not there yet, and until we get there, every day we're going to have conversations surrounding Brandon Aiyuk. It's a very interesting topic because, again, going back to the fact it's a guy in a 5th-year option as opposed to a tag. He's technically under contract. He can't do anything about that. The 49ers could force him to just play that out. He can sit out, but he's going to be fined for doing so. And it's not like he's gotten a big payday yet to be able to really take on those fines. Like, that's what he's seeking right now, is that first big payday. He was a first-round pick, so I'm not saying the guy's, hasn't made money, but he hasn't gotten that large payday yet. I think I'm just super intrigued by the whole situation. I don't know how we got here. That's the big thing for me, is like, when you have the opportunity to seemingly acquire a receiver, like if he's legitimately available for pennies on the dollar right now, I think you got to do it. That's why, like, I think the Steelers are right to be involved in this. And I think I wouldn't use the word luck, because clearly there's a reason here. Probably 1A being Mike Tomlin as the head coach, that Brandon Aiyuk wants to come here. But if he didn't want to come here, this wouldn't even be like the Steelers nowhere near the compensation in terms of what would be going back to the 49ers. And they don't have, I don't know that they would be spending the most money on him too. Like, New England offered him the most money. Cleveland probably had the best trade package, but it's Pittsburgh is the one that's still in the mix for him if it's not San Francisco. So I'm just super intrigued by all of this. My mind has gone back and forth in terms of the way that it was going to play out. I mean, I'll be honest, like, if you follow me on Twitter, you knew Wednesday I thought this was a done deal, that he was coming to Pittsburgh. And I guess we can shed some light on that too, because I think I owe it to people that I've put out. And if I made you feel like this was a done deal, explain to you why it got to that point. It wasn't just me. You look at, our boy, Steelers DB, Derek Bell, Kevin Adams and Jersey Jerry of the Steel Here pod, Philipponi, Pony Express, 93.7 The Fan. There were multiple people, and it's not like we all talk either, like, about this. Like, do we all have the same source that was telling, like, there's a reason that everybody thought that Wednesday was the day for this to happen. There was a lot of optimism coming from the Steelers front office that something was going to get done on Wednesday. So much so to the fact that I'm not going to tell you where this is coming from, but someone in a certain department for them wasn't able to go golfing because they had to be around that day in case a transaction took place. Like, they thought this was going down on Wednesday. I don't know how else to tell people. So I get it. I'm the one that, I'm one of the ones that put it out there, so it's going to come back on me. But it's not like I was making this up. Like, and again, multiple people across the board here all thought this was going down. Was it all directly going back to one person who was more optimistic than they should have been? Maybe. But Wednesday, I really thought Brandon Aiyuk was going to become a Pittsburgh Steeler. As we sit here now, I would say I think the door's still open for it. But if I had to guess, I think he ends up remaining a San Francisco 49er.
Well, something that is so interesting to me that came out more so today on Friday as of recording this is that the news broke of, they're actually re-engaging talks, had a big meeting with Kyle Shanahan and management for the 49ers and all that. But one of the most amazing things to me that is not that common, I don't think, in past situations that could be similar to this, is how vocal this guy is publicly just about the entire situation. Like what he commented on Instagram, basically saying like the 49ers media are going to be pushing whatever they want. There's only two outcomes to this. Like so anything you hear is going to be pushed by somebody's narrative to try to sway it into their betterment.
Well, let me ask you this then. Between that and Matt, I don't know how you pronounce his last name, Mayoko. You know who I'm talking about. I'm sure you've seen his tweets because of this. Mayoko or whatever. He seems like he's probably like San Francisco's version of like Jerry Dulac, I would say. Between Ayuk's comment on Instagram and then this Mayoko putting out that the Steelers were told they'd have to give them a second and third round pick. Do you think that is better for the Steelers situation, or like, do you think that means it's more likely that he's getting moved, or more likely that a deal's close with the 49ers? So they're kind of just like putting out there what the offers were because it doesn't matter at this point.
Well, normally I would have thought better, but then I also saw people saying that the Steelers shied away from that offer of what the 49ers wanted.
Unbelievable. By the way, if that is the deal that would get them Brandon Aiyuk and they are not jumping on that,
that's what I mean. A second and a third, and you get Brandon Aiyuk. I think you jump all over that if that's the opportunity. If Omar Khan said no to that, and that's the reason that this deal is being hung up, I am appalled at their decision-making on this trade, because that is quite literally getting a Brandon Aiyuk for pennies on the dollar, like you had mentioned, like other people have said. That is quite literally better than any probable deal you could have hoped to come up with, because you're not having to, you're not really going to be able to include a wide receiver that San Francisco is going to want, but you're not going to have to go through the hoops of trying to get another team in on this trade so they can end up with a wide receiver, plus your potential second and fifth round pick that were being thrown around. But a second and a third, just straight up, no wide receiver kicker, no first round pick. How are you not accepting that trade immediately, especially when you look at the way your wide receiver room is right now? You know how dire of a need this is.
Talk about that.
You're getting a first-round talent. You're getting your true deep threat in returning in this trade. If this is the actual deal that was offered, I have no idea why Omar Khan did not do that. And if that is being out there and mixed with Ayuk's comments and the 49ers people's comments, I do think that the door is still open for the Steelers, and I still think that a deal could be likely for the Steelers. It's just the news of them denying that trade or rejecting that trade offer for the second and the third. To me, it's like, what more do the Steelers want in this deal? Like, what more are they trying to not give up if that's the case?
You think that there's still the willingness from the 49ers side. It's the Steelers that are the ones that are holding it up.
Well, to me, it's like if you were offered a second and give us a second and a third, and we'll give you Aiyuk. Why would the Steelers not do that? So that speaks to me that's the Steelers holding it up.
Yeah, the thing with the fact that it's the 49ers leaking that out, I just wonder if that's even the case, I guess is my point. I don't know what to believe. Like, this has turned me into, I feel like a conspiracy theorist right now. On this entire thing. I have no clue what's true anymore in terms of
this is our Bush did 9/11. Like that's what this is for us.
Here's the thing.
I was to say, when you throw in all of it with what the Steelers are saying, what the 49ers are saying, and then you even sprinkle in the stuff with the Patriots and the Browns, who had a trade accepted with a second, a fifth, and Amari Cooper, but the only reason that didn't go through is because Brandon Aiyuk didn't want to go to Cleveland. Like this is our conspiracy theory. This is collectively Steeler Nation's. Like this is what we're working towards. This is what we like to talk about.
The thing for me that I just like keep coming back to is the amount of information that I've received that all kind of conflicts each other within the last like 72 hours. Well, I guess since the beginning of the week, really, when this whole thing really kicked off. So I had the only party that I really can't speak to is the Patriots, because I don't have like a source there. I have somebody that covers the 49ers, and I know a lot of Browns people, and one is very well connected. So the amount of information that I've gotten from them is just insane to me. Like, the 49ers person is like adamant that there was never a plan to trade Brandon Aiyuk, and they are using other teams to basically negotiate a contract for him and like use that as leverage. So there's never been a plan to trade him, according to this guy. The Browns people at first thought that they were being used as leverage, but like with the amount of money that the Haslams are willing to throw around, it seemed like they thought that it was like a legit possibility that they could make that happen. Apparently, he has beef with a couple players currently on the Browns roster. Brandon Aiyuk does. Was told by somebody that is close to a minority owner of the Steelers that the Browns have certainly been in play. Like, so I mean, like the amount of conflicting info that I feel like I've received, and then somebody else telling me, and I think that this is widely reported at this point, so I believe this part, that the financial aspect of this entire thing is done. Like if Brandon Aiyuk comes to Pittsburgh, like the contract is already worked out. It's really just satisfying San Francisco compensation wise to make the trade work. But yeah, the amount of different things that I've heard that all kind of go against each other. And I'll tell you what, going back to that San Francisco one real quick, I want to get your opinion on this. Would you, if you were the Steelers, have an issue going forward with negotiating with the 49ers if you knew that that was the case, that they weren't actually like ever planning to deal Brandon Aiyuk to you? This was just them using you basically to negotiate a new contract with Brandon Aiyuk? Or is that, I mean, like, because for me, that's not negotiating in good faith. And I don't know if I'd want to deal with them going forward.
And you're talking about not just an Aiyuk trade, you mean period.
Yeah, like any future deals. Like, how do you have, if you can't trust them to negotiate in good faith with them on this trade, going forward, how do you do business with them?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think that is negotiating in bad faith. At the same time, like, I can see the 49ers side of it. I understand it from the business standpoint. Like, you got to play the game, and playing that game is partially trying to leverage yourself into the best situation possible. And if that's burning other people in the process, I understand that could happen in the business world and in the sports business world especially. But from the Steelers' perspective, absolutely. I don't think that you can look at the 49ers as a future trade partner as a realistic option if that were the case. Now, if a trade actually goes through and then they shake hands and everybody's all happy, then that's different. But if Brandon Aiyuk ends up signing a long-term deal, which honestly, like, that is the smarter move from the 49ers. I don't know why it hasn't already happened from the 49ers aspect of it. I don't know why the 49ers would even entertain trading him. The only reason we talk about it so much is because it's being talked about so much. But the 49ers, if the long-term deal happens, and that is basically how it plays out or how it's perceived from the Steelers, is that you are basically negotiating us to leverage yourself in a better situation with Brandon and being able to sign that contract with him, then moving forward, I would not even look at the Bay Area for any calls for trades for you guys, or if they're interested in somebody on the Steelers, or if you're trying to trade picks moving forward when it comes to like draft time. That is something that would sour me if I were Omar Khan and the Steelers moving forward with that franchise. Now, personally, I still think that the Aiyuk trade is a very real possibility for the Steelers. I don't think
I
it's
think it's possible.
I don't
I'm
think it's
not
all
saying
negotiating in
no
bad
forward.
faith from the 49ers. I definitely think they're trying to leverage themselves to the best of their ability, whether that be for a contract extension with Brandon Aiyuk or you're trying to get the best trade package. No matter which option, they're trying to get the best leverage in that realm. But at the same time, something's got to give at some point. Like at some point, the news has got to stop breaking. We got to stop having source offs, so to speak, of whose information is correct, and some actual breaking news needs to happen. Whether that's the extension, whether that's a trade, at some point something has got to give because the Steelers just played their first preseason game. We are like a month away from the first regular season game.
Mhm.
Clock is ticking, and like you mentioned, like I don't think Brandon Aiyuk, for one, is going to be wanting to sit out this whole time and miss all the fines. And I don't think that as a player, you necessarily want to hold out until the regular season and then just join the team willy-nilly. I think that if you're Aiyuk, you probably would feel more comfortable knowing which situation you're going to end up in, whether you're staying in San Francisco or going to Pittsburgh or wherever it may be. You're going to want that decision as the player sooner than later too. Something's got to give at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've spent enough time talking about a player that's not currently on the roster. Hopefully it comes to fruition. I would love him within this offense. Brandon Aiyuk, in my opinion, top 10 receiver in this league. You look at what he did last year, arguably was a top 5 guy across the league last year. And the way that he blocks too, I think that Zach Dezzani and Arthur Smith would love him. I think for this offense specifically, he'd be a game changer. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I am wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. I put up the link, but if you're super excited about Justin Fields, I know a lot of Steelers fans are. They got a Justin Fields design over there at pick6.la, so go check it out. Save yourself $10 with code AT412 or any of the Steelers designs. They got Patrick Queen. I'm wearing the Pat Fryermuth one right now. Had to rep our boy in the preseason opener, which we're going to jump into in a second, but a little bit of piece of news here as well. Markus Golden suddenly retiring today, just like a week after joining the team, which, last week I said, man, I'm excited about this. I think it kind of shores up that edge 4 spot behind Nate Herbig. Got to feel really good about what's going on there. And now that battle is once again just reopened. Jeremiah Moon, DeMarvin Leal looks like he's pretty much permanently moved out there. Tyron Johnson, who I thought definitely flashed at times tonight too. I thought all 3 of those guys actually played pretty well in this game. Now thinking back as to guys that I thought popped. But yeah, Markus Golden was definitely a guy that I was like, man, I'm excited to have him back. 4 sacks last year. Really good as a run defender. But he decides to hang him up. I don't know. He probably got to camp and was like, why this is miserable. Why did I sign up to do this another year? So best of luck to him in his future endeavors. Heck of a career. Really would have been nice to get 2024 out of him too, but hey, now somebody else got to step up.
I wonder what it was that made him decide to actually hang them up a week after signing with the Steelers again. Like, did he literally just get to camp and be like, man, I'm too old for this crap? I got.
Yeah, people really can't make the
this.
jokes. Like, outside organizations really can't make the jokes of like, oh, he saw what the Steelers looked like or something, because he was here last year.
Yeah.
Like, it's not so, it's not like he was coming from an outside organization, didn't know what to expect or anything like that. So I don't know. I don't know what took place, but like I said, best of luck to him. We'll see how that edge 4 battle continues to go throughout the preseason. But let's talk about this preseason opener. They drop it 20-12 to the Houston Texans at Acrisure Stadium. Obviously, the result of the game doesn't really matter. Look at performances of certain players, obviously. You watched the game. I watched the game. Let's just dive right into it. Who stood out to you?
There were several players that actually stood out early in the game and later in the game for various reasons. One of the guys early on in the game that really stuck out to me was Monty Adams. I thought he was disruptive on the defensive line. He did have a sack. He had a pass deflection. He's one that really impressed me early on. I was not so impressed flipping to the other side of the ball with which Herbig brother is it? It was Nate Herbig.
Nate's the center. Yeah.
Nate is the center. And it was amazing how quickly it changed whenever Frazier came in to replace him. I don't think that you should have a backup guard as your starting center moving forward. And I think that Frazier showed that tonight, why he should be over Nate Herbig. Pretty disappointing to see that. But speaking of Zach Frazier, I did think that he actually stood out, had a nice debut for the Steelers. Alongside next to him, I thought Mason McCormick also did pretty well tonight with the Steelers. I think that the young guys on the offensive line, while they're still young and they've got a lot of things out still, I think that in their first actual NFL game experience, I think that they did a pretty good job. And that's something that we have not had recent years with the offensive line, and especially with such a young offensive line, you're probably going to be relying on a lot of younger guys than you normally would have liked to. But seeing what those guys were able to do, I felt good about it. Someone else that stuck out to me early and then kind of got all over the place was Payton Wilson at linebacker. I mean, the dude has wheels. The dude can fly around the field. There's no doubt about that. I just think he needs to learn to control
It's funny
control himself.
Because you could probably say that he had the most like high end flashes, but he also probably had the most low lights in his game as well.
Yeah, I mean several missed tackles, lost in coverage a couple times.
Kind of reminiscent of what Ryan Shazier, and I'm not calling him Ryan Shazier. I'm talking about like the over pursuit, like kind of always getting there. The athleticism is just always going to allow him to be in place, but like over pursuing plays a lot and stuff like that. This kind of reminded me of like the first times that we saw Ryan Shazier.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's just whenever I watch Payton Wilson, like you could see the athleticism. It's very apparent that he's one of the most athletic dudes out on that field. He just needs to clean things up. He needs to tighten things up and be able to not over pursue. He kind of loses himself sometimes with how athletic he is, how much he moves, and how much motor he has. I think he just needs to tighten that up. But there were some flashes of good as well with him. And then another guy that I've actually said could be a cut candidate on the defensive line, I thought had a pretty nice night, was DeMarvin Leal as well. That's somebody that is fighting for a roster spot for sure. He's kind of been a in-betweener of being a defensive tackle or defensive end and hasn't really found a place in his first few years with the Steelers. But I thought he did have a nice night. And then also a couple of the running backs. I thought that Ward looked pretty good and Edwards looked pretty good. But I think that is more so going to show how good the run game should be in the regular season as a whole. I'm sure those guys did their effort tonight, but I think that with the offensive line and the run schemes that you're going to get from Arthur Smith, which, by the way, I liked Arthur Smith's playing calling for most of the night. I think that a breath of fresh air is watching Arthur Smith play calling compared to what we got last year. I am so excited for the regular season to be able to watch it unfold with the whole offense. But seeing what like Wards and Edwards would do in like limited snaps tonight, what they were able to do, I was impressed with them. Someone's going to be fighting for running back 3 anyway. And so seeing those guys being able to move the ball on the ground was pretty impressive as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you brought up just the offense in general, just the way that it looked. I know that the execution wasn't always there. Kyle Allen missed Calvin Austin on an easy touchdown in the second quarter, which was a great dial up by Artie Smith. But there were so many times like just watching the route concepts. Speaking of Kyle Allen and Calvin Austin, though, I thought that they certainly had their moments together. Kyle Allen made some nice throws to him. And what I liked about it was the spacing of the routes, where I was like noticing, I was like, man, this wasn't something that we saw in previous years. You know, like an over the top guy kind of taking the top off the underneath route right below it, where you're taking the top off the coverage, kind of putting the defensive backs where they got to make a decision. And Kyle Allen just making the right read on a few of those definitely pop off the page to me. we already talked about Payton Wilson and the highlights and the lowlights that came with his night. Des Fitzpatrick, just one catch. Really nice play on that one, though.
Quez Watkins, welcome to the CFL, buddy. You're not going to be here.
Yeah, I was looking for positives before we got into the negative, but you're absolutely right. That would be.
You just mentioned a receiver, and he immediately came into my head when I was thinking.
Yeah,
about
you're
receivers.
right. I mean, that's. I mean, he's a guy that's already kind of like he's on the bubble for sure. I would say that this. I don't know about firmly, but definitely on the outside right now. Looking if they've changed the format last year, right, where you don't have cut down periods, you just have one cut down day
big cut
at the end. So, but if there were cut down periods, I'm not sure that he'd have the opportunity to try to, regain some stock in the next couple preseason games. So probably a benefit to a guy like Quez Watkins in this new format. You mentioned DeMarvin Leal. I thought he was really good. I thought, like I said, the edge guys, Jeremiah Moon, Kyron Johnson, I noted.
They had all good nights.
Really nice.
I think that's a nice thing to see after the surprising news that there was a retire with
I think that they were probably all licking their chops.
I think that finding that edge 4 is going to be important because you need to have some depth there. We had some depth there with the recent signing, but then I think that fighting for a spot is going to be important for these guys. Jeremiah Moon, big sack. Kyron Johnson, I thought he was like flying around the defensive field. I thought they did pretty well.
Probably the best athlete of those guys. I mean, he's smaller. So I think that, not necessarily the body type that they typically look for, but I mean, Nate Herbig, who's carving out a role as edge 3 is also a smaller edge guy. So we'll see on that front. Really excited for Corey Trice. He was probably more excited than anybody else to get to this game. Obviously had his entire rookie season strapped before he could get into a game. So I know it's just preseason, but I know that game meant a lot to him. Blew up a screen play. I don't know if he did much outside of that.
He was only in the last few minutes. That was his big moment.
You mentioned Monty Adams. I thought was awesome. Probably one of the 3 stars of the game for me.
Ryan Watts also had a good night too. I think
what did you think about
was on display.
What do you think about Cam Johnson getting in somebody's face after a punt?
I appreciate it. And also hearing what is their punter's name on the Texans?
Tommy Townsend.
Hearing what he said to Quez Watkins on the hot mic, it's like, how do you show up? How do you show up to practice after that? Catch that ball.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it. Punters got fire. There's a lot of spice going on with those punters. I appreciated seeing that.
Connor Hayward and Dejuan Edwards were the 2 players that scored touchdowns in this game. Yeah, I don't know that I had much outside of that I really thought popped off the page to me. Troy Fautanu left with a knee injury. Certainly something to monitor. It's being evaluated right now. But if you guys notice, Broderick going back to the right side pretty quickly there and playing quite a bit. He played into the second half on the right side. That would be the reason why. So hopefully, man, nothing too serious. Any lost reps there are going to be a shame. So we'll see how that looks.
Also left with an eye injury. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess
poked eye, cut, whatever it was.
I guess I'm not one to overreact to that too much. Just because of it's an eye injury and not something like I'm saying with a knee with Troy Fautanu, where there's so much gray area there where that could be. Oh, this is funny. This just got sent to me now, so I feel like I got to bring it up as we're recording here. Somebody had a number 11 Steelers jersey, and they taped Aiyuk over the jersey, and posted it on Instagram and tagged him, and he just responded. Brandon Aiyuk himself responded and said, "Tough." So, Steeler confirmed. Brandon Aiyuk. After that,
Chase Claypool is in his feelings right now.
Yeah, you think it's a Chase Claypool? You Chase Claypool over Allen Robinson? I'd imagine.
I would imagine so.
It could be a I mean, man, there's actually a lot that it could be. Moncrief.
11's kind of cursed, right?
Yeah, it has been. Now,
Not
Van
great.
Jefferson. Are you going to break it? Or is it even going to be Van Jefferson's? How's that going to play out if they do acquire Brandon Aiyuk in a trade? How's that going to play out from a numbers perspective? Curious. I mean, with the bag he's going to get, he'll certainly be able to throw some money Van Jefferson's way if he wants to part with 11 and go with a different number.
That's true.
But yeah, not too much else to take away from this. Just
pretty
make
sloppy
sure
football
that
game.
Troy Faetanu gets out of there without this being a major injury. That's the win. We don't care about the win and loss in the column here. You got to get out of these games without having any major injuries suffered. But of course, I think we got to talk about, before we do, a little bit shorter of a pod. I feel like if you are a watcher/listener of anything Steelers Now Afternoon Drive, we're going to be doing a post-game show over there. If you didn't catch it already, be sure to go check that out, where Alan and I are going to talk about this game. Justin Fields, I feel like we got to talk about him. We got to start with the ones because Russell Wilson wasn't active in this game. What did you see from Justin? I thought, for the most part, I thought he was fine. I thought that the two of the three drives were kind of stalled because of bad snaps, like you mentioned, by Nate Herbig. But he hit a nice, crossing route to Van. He hit another throw to Van, which, if it was the regular season Tomlin challenges, I don't know if he just didn't challenge it because it was a preseason game, but certainly a catch. Which that drive ended because of that play. So, I think that the three drives, at least two of them, shouldn't have stalled out the way that they did.
Yeah, I thought Fields looked pretty solid. I don't think he blew any of us away by his performance. Still a lot of meat left on the bone after that one, but also at the same time, I think that he didn't hurt himself any. And I think that you saw some growth as a passer, for one, because I think that in situations where Fields could have used his legs more or moved around in the pocket, he kind of stuck there and chose to plant his feet and throw the ball instead. And I think that's something that you want to see progression-wise from Justin Fields. I thought it was a solid night for him. I think that he is taking the opportunity with Russell Wilson being out in stride and being able to progress himself. Like I said, I don't think he hurt himself at all. If anything, I think he helped his case by having a pretty fair performance. And I think that while it could have been definitely better, like touchdown drives and everything, I'm not going to put all of my stock into a preseason performance from a quarterback, because look at what happened with Kenny Pickett last year.
Absolutely. He was also in action for the Eagles tonight. 0 for 4 on throws that were over 10 yards. He had like 22 attempts,
89 yards.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
That sounds about right. But he did get his first push experience, I saw.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I don't know how else I'm going to make this segue, so we're just going to talk about the fact that Quez Watkins probably should be cut. Smitty from Around the 412 here, and while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keek's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keek's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app The Cut, book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. The last thing that I want to ask you before we get out of here, like I said, bit shorter pod. Based off what you saw in game one, is there something now, in 8 days, or I guess a week when people are watching or listening to this, against Buffalo, that you want to see? Whether it's something carrying over or a change. Like for me, I would love by that point, and actually Tomlin mentioned he should see Russell Wilson in action a little bit in that one. I would love to see the flip happen. I want to see Frazier with the ones and just see how it goes.
Yeah. That's something that I was immediately going to say, that I think that they should flip him and make him the starting center. If it's not more evident after this game, I don't know what more you have to see from Herbig to know that he should not be your starting center. And whether you feel comfortable about throwing Frazier in there or not, I think that he performed better whenever he got in there. So I would make that flip. I would look for some less sloppiness from mainly the entire team, but since we're talking about the offensive line, they did have a few holding penalties. So kind of clean those things up. And I'd probably look to see some more, what's the right word? Discipline from the secondary. I think back to the Well, is that last drive before halftime, whenever the Texans got a field goal, and it's just seemed like the Steelers weren't getting a ton of pressure because they were playing prevent, but the Texans were just kind of like chipping their way down the field. And so I'd like to see some more discipline out of their secondary. And yeah, I want to see Russell Wilson. I want to see him in action. We saw Justin Fields in some action. Let's see what the flip side of that coin is going to be like. This is a quarterback battle, and part of that battle has to be in the preseason. I want to see I want to see multiple drives from both quarterbacks in the preseason, not just several work in practice.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. I would like to see, like I said, Frazier. You know who was somebody that I was looking forward to watching tonight? Beanie Bishop. And I feel like
it was quiet.
Yeah. There was the first touchdown, Tank Dell. They were in zone coverage. He was somewhat close, but it was really Anthony Averett. And then I think he thought he had safety help that he didn't have inside. I think they were in cover 3. Not 100% sure. I'd have to go back and watch it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see more from him in week 2 of the preseason. I don't know that I'm really.
I guess some more heightened awareness for the edge 4 spot, whether it's Johnson, whether it's Moon.
And they all look good. Yeah, I get. Let's stack a second week onto what they did tonight, because I thought they all looked pretty good. So are any of them or all of them or some of them going to then stack the weeks and carry that over to next week? That will be certainly something to watch too. The defensive backs, there's not a ton of depth there behind Joey and Dante. That's proven, at least.
Also, we saw Cam Sutton tonight, and I didn't. Maybe I just didn't even think
he's
about
playing
this,
13
that he could play in the preseason, and it doesn't matter towards the regular season. I just didn't put 2 and 2 together. So when I saw him on the field, I was like, "What's he doing
safety?"
Yeah.
They're just keeping him active, making sure he's got reps and stuff like that. So, yeah, as long as he's able to play, might as well play in some capacity. They needed the reps from somebody with how many guys they knew were going to be inactive or on short snap counts. So, anything else?
No, it's nice to see the Steelers playing an actual football game again.
Yeah, there's just football back on the TV. Yeah. And again, if I had a main takeaway, I enjoyed what I saw from Arthur Smith tonight. I like the way
that's true. That's got to be the takeaway. He left me wanting more, which is something I can't say about the offense for the last several years.
Yeah, you just want, like, when they do have the full complement. Let's see how Russ looks within that offense. If he's able to dial up that same game plan next week, and are we going to be able to execute it at a higher level? So, be interesting to watch. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell for sure down below. Hit us in the comments with any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, all that good stuff. In the description of the show, you will see year 7 of Rocking Around the 412. You'll see a bunch of different links, including Everything Custom Designs, where you can get some customized t-shirts of your own or get some of our merch. T-shirts, long sleeves, hoodies, all that good stuff. Custom tumblers. I have one. I showed it to you guys on the Pirate Show. Go back and watch that if you haven't yet, to see what that looks like. Also, our shorts from DC4L Customs, linked directly to that as well. I'll throw the link in for this as well. Not related to football necessarily, but Tyler and I are to be throwing out the first pitch at the Washington Wild Things game on August 22nd. The link that is in the description will be good for some free tickets for that game. So be sure to check that out as well. And then, Pick 6 and Game Changers. Save $10 using code AT412. Ton of different Steelers designs, so be sure to check them out. Maybe more Steelers designs than literally any other thing on that site, to be quite honest with you. They've got over 3,000 designs. Large amount of them are Steelers designs, and they're constantly pumping out new ones as well, so be sure to check that out. If you're listening somewhere else, not right here on YouTube, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. That's on Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from. You can find us there, and follow us on everything. That's at Around the 412 on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Like us on Facebook. All that good stuff. Until next time, Tyler, for Smitty, this has been the Around the 412 Steelers show. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.